All right, folks, welcome in. It is another brand new edition of the 901 Soccer Podcast, and I'm your host, Lawrence Dockery. You can find me on Twitter at LDoc93. You can find the 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod. You can find Bluff City Media on Twitter at Bluff City_media. And, of course, you can find us over on Facebook as well. Just search 901 Soccer, and that page will pop right up. Just search Bluff City Media, and that page will pop right up. And, of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, like I hope you are, of course, if you're watching it, that's where you're watching. And if you're not, that's where you should be. You can just like, comment. You can subscribe to the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. Make sure to like the video and comment on the video. It helps grow the channel, so please do it. It's been a while since I've done a solo show, but we're back and better than ever. And what we're talking about tonight is something that broke today that when I saw it, it was one of those stories that you kind of thought was a joke. Like it wasn't really this isn't happening. Well, it might be happening. So the USL has announced that they are going to be forming a new first division, and the plan is to have them start play as soon as 2027. As far as who, what, and where, and how, that all remains to be seen. As you can see on the ticker scrolling down there at the bottom, I think this is incredibly dumb. This is so dumb, and it's so unnecessary. There's no reason for this. It's really stupid. It really is. I'm sorry. There's a whole list and a variety of reasons why this is incredibly stupid on the part of the USL. And if you followed me on Twitter for any amount of time, one of the things that I've started noticing is that the NBA, bear with me, the NBA is now the absolute master of giving people things that nobody asked for. Hey, why are we having to sit here and tune in and watch 173 three-pointers fired in the same game? Why are we paying all this money to watch our star players not actually play basketball? See, Joel Embiid. You know how Adam Silver has decided to fix that? Round shot clocks instead of square shot clocks and a play-in tournament. Okay. So the NBA has mastered the art of giving the public things that nobody asked for as a way to I don't know what. But it seems that the USL has now also decided to give people something that nobody asked for. And I don't know why. I mean, I think I sort of do know why. And I think it's to cash in on a home World Cup in 2026. But you don't need to launch a new first division to cash in on a home World Cup in 2026. You just don't. So there's a variety of concerns that I have with this. There's a number of them. And not so coincidentally, they happen to go hand in hand with why I think this is dumb. One of the things is, where are you going to put all these teams? Right? Because you're going to have to put them in places that either don't have soccer teams or are already existing USL teams. And if there were League Two teams that were good enough, they'd be League One or in the championship. And if there were League One teams that were good enough, they'd be in the championship. And as we've sort of seen in the past with MLS, if they were good enough, they would go from USL championship to MLS. And so, like, what are you gonna put a team in, like, Billings, Montana, or Anchorage, Alaska, or Carson City, Nevada, or I don't know, Pierre, North Dakota, or is Pierre, South Dakota? I think it's Pierre, South Dakota. The other thing that I kind of along the same front is any place that you decide to go, MLS is going to look at it and go, okay, we're just going to put another team there. Like MLS is, I've gotten very frustrated with them over the years, and I understand. And this point has been made that they are the most successful American soccer league in history, and that is true. And they have done quite a bit to grow the game in this country. But they've gotten to a point now. Remember, Don Garber said any soccer dollar in America that is not spent on MLS is a dollar wasted. Um, we've seen MLS do it with the way they have opted out of the Open Cup because of fixture congestion that they created. We've seen it with reports that they're going to try to go to Indy. MLS is operating like any other league is competition that needs to be put out of business. So, what do you think is going to happen when you are going to create another league that is allegedly on the same level and the same tier and level of sanctioning as MLS? That's not going to end well for the USL. That's going to end badly. One of my other concerns, and it's kind of along those same lines, is there are not very many teams in the USL Championship, let alone League One or League Two, that could compete or operate in MLS today. And the reason we have to keep making this comparison to MLS is that the USL says they're going to be forming their own first division league, whatever you want to call it. And again, it's my biggest concern is that there's going to be oversaturation because MLS is probably a little bit too big as it is, um, and that includes there being 3 teams in Canada. So you're going to have a 30-something team first division league over here, and you're going to create a new first division team to rival it. I don't think it's going to rival it. So, like I said, there's only 3 or 4 teams in the USL Championship currently that have the infrastructure and the fan base and, let's be honest, the finances to compete at that level. You're looking at Louisville City, you're looking at the Sacramento Republic, and you're probably looking at New Mexico United. And there may be Indy 11 and maybe Colorado Springs, the Switchbacks, with their stadium and the crowds that they get, maybe San Antonio. Okay, that's what, 6? Um, so are you just going to like promote those to the first team and then create a bunch of other cities out of thin air? Or are you going to put new teams in cities where there are already existing teams, be it MLS teams or USL teams across one of the 3 divisions? Um, it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. Um, my concern is also that if you're just going to create a league and pull all these teams out of thin air, that you're kind of kneecapping the teams in the USL Championship that have flown the banner for the league for the last several years. Like I mentioned, you know, Louisville City, very well attended. They've got their own stadium. They've made a couple of deep Open Cup runs. They've won some USL titles. Sacramento Republic was for the longest time going to be the next expansion target for Major League Soccer until they weren't. Um, New Mexico United draws very well. They're about to get their own stadium. Um, so you're either going to have to move them up or you're going to have to basically just tell them, hey, we appreciate all you've done. You're not worth a damn now. Sorry. Um, and this all comes back to, I think, how do I want to say this? Because I don't want to. This is not a show that's designed to piss anybody off. Not tonight, anyway. I'm sure that's happened in the past, and I'm sure it'll happen again in the future because that's just what I do. But I always go back and forth on, and for lack of a better term, the zealots of promotion and relegation. Would I eventually, at some point in the future, some nebulous, indeterminate point in the future, would I like to see promotion and relegation throughout the American soccer landscape? Yes, I would. Do I think we will ever get there? I don't know. And I don't say that as in I don't think it's going to happen. I say that as in I do not know, and I have no idea if it will happen or if it can happen. Um, I get frustrated with the zealots that pretend that just waving a magic wand and saying pro rel, everything is awesome. There are no financial problems anymore. There are no talent problems anymore. There is no interest problems anymore. Like it's just a button that you click, and all of a sudden, we're the greatest soccer nation on earth. We're going to win every World Cup. Uh, I that you're living in a fairy tale world. That's you need to please come back to this planet, or perhaps seek the help of some sort of institution, because that's you're living in outer space if you think just saying, hey, promotion and relegation fixes everything. It doesn't. But you've seen the discussion out there over the course of the day today, and quite frankly, you've seen this discussion around the USL for it crops up every 8 to 12 months, where this is going to be what leads to promotion and relegation in American soccer. And again, I'm not opposed to the notion at all. Like I said, I would eventually like to get to a point where we have it. I like the idea of being rewarded for success and punished for failure. I like that. This notion of parity, parity, not parody. This notion of parity is, to me, farcical. There are haves and there are have nots, and there will always be haves and there will always be have nots. And this manufactured parity, um, the NFL is the beacon of manufactured parity. And over the last 25 years, you essentially have like the Super Bowls won by like the same five quarterbacks, or the same five organizations, right? This despite all of the mechanisms put in place to prevent dynasties. Uh, to a lesser extent, that's true in the NBA. Major League Baseball and the NHL have their own lists of problems that need not be gone into here. So the discussion around this is, oh wow, if the USL gets to create their own first division league, that means we're finally going to have pro rel in American soccer. Well, maybe, but I mean, the infrastructure within the USL has been there already for a number of years, at least since 2019 when we first started enjoying Memphis 901 FC. May they rest in peace. The USL Championship and League One and League Two have been a thing for a minute. This isn't something that they just created last year and are trying to cook up some sort of pro rel scheme. No, the infrastructure, the setup has been there for a number of years. And like I said, every 8 to 12 months, the USL is going to experiment with promotion and relegation within the US. Okay, that's great, but A, it hasn't happened, and I don't think that adding a new first division team changes that. One of the other things I forgot to mention, started to mention it. Like I said, there's only a couple of teams in the USL Championship that are stable and successful enough that where they could compete at MLS, which is the right now only first division league that we have in this country. Um, the bulk of the USL Championship teams are getting by the skin of their ass, right? You look at Memphis 901 FC. They were losing money hand over fist on a yearly basis, and they lasted 6 years. You've had how many teams in the USL Championship go bye-bye the last 3 or 4 years? You had 901 FC, obviously. You had Rio Grande Valley. You had San Diego Loyal. You had Reno. Who else? North Carolina went down from the championship to League One and came back to the championship. Uh, I know Sporting Lexington just got promoted from League One to the championship because 901 FC went bye-bye. There's a lot of churning, there's a lot of turnover, and does adding a new first division league really change that? No, it doesn't. Does it address that? No, it does not. There's also the concern that the sanctioning rules from U.S. Soccer, there's certain criteria that have to be met to be granted sanctioning as a first division league. You have to have X number of teams. X number of those teams have to have their own stadiums. Those stadiums have to have a certain capacity, which I believe is 15,000. I don't know that there's but maybe 3 teams in the USL Championship that have a stadium that seats 15,000 people, and they don't. The Birmingham Legion play at Protective Stadium, and that's a 40-something thousand seat stadium, but that is a disaster. You can go back and watch the 901 Soccer podcast from last April, where I went on the road to cover 901 FC at Birmingham, and that'll tell you everything you need to know about the organization and the efficiency of the event planning at Protective Stadium. If you don't want to do that, I'll tell you it's a disaster. There's not a soul down there that knows their elbow from their asshole. Then you have Miami FC that sometimes plays at the artist now known as Pitbull Stadium, which is FIU's football stadium. That seats like 20,000 people. They were last in the USL Championship in attendance last year with just over 1,000 people per game. And then I think Lynn Family Stadium in Louisville currently seats 11 and can be expanded up to 14, I think. That doesn't quite get you to 15. Breaking news, 14,000 is less than 15,000. Yes, I am a math major. Thank you. So that's another, but you've got the instability or the essentially living paycheck to paycheck for a lot of the teams already in the USL, be it the Championship, League One, or League Two. You've got the fact that you've lost a number of teams the last several years. You also have to consider the fact that MLS views you as a bug to be squashed and not an equal. And every time the USL has tried to make some sort of serious run to challenge MLS has upped their game, be it player salaries, facilities, whatever. Also, Major League Soccer, one of the things that has really pissed me off about them, not only not playing in the Open Cup, which is absolutely 100% an attempt to put the USL out of business. Every time there is a successful USL fan base being built, MLS comes in and says, hey, we like what you did. We'll take it. See Orlando, see a number of other cities, right? And that's all the rumors going around at Indy. Indy 11 have done a really good job building a solid fan base. I think, as a matter of fact, I think they were top 3 in attendance in USL Championship last year. And they were going to be getting their own stadium, and then there's all these rumors flying around that MLS wants to build their own stadium in Indy and have an expansion team there. And for as much as I decried the ambivalence or neglect of Memphis 901 FC by the local media here, I am at least grateful that they did not viciously and vociferously advocate for the demise of Memphis 901 FC the way that the media in Indy has done since these MLS rumors came up. I mean, every single columnist at the Indianapolis Star has advocated for the death of the Indy 11, which I find completely asinine. But anyway, so there's a lot of obstacles to just be like, hey, we're starting our own first division league here. Hey, ho. Where's the money coming from? Who's the ownership group's going to be? Where are you going to be playing? Don't think that MLS is just going to sit there and watch you do that and let it happen. Is U.S. Soccer even going to sanction you? You've got a number of problems within your own leagues. It's my belief that you should probably, if you're going to try to capitalize on hosting the World Cup in 2026, you should probably just work on bettering what you have than trying to add to it. Stabilize the teams in your league, stabilize your leagues, And then if promotion and relegation is going to happen, do it within your league. And then eventually, however far down the road, once you can show that it works within the American system, you may be able to convince MLS that that's the route to go. There's also, if adding another first division league means a higher likelihood of promotion and relegation, which first division league are teams getting promoted to and relegated out of? I mean, if it's just going to be the USL Division One, Championship, League One, League Two, and you're doing promotion and relegation to there, and MLS is over here on their own, what's the point of creating the first division? You could already do that with what you have, and you've been talking about it for a decade, and it hasn't happened. I also think, and I don't know how many people saw this story because it's been going on for 10 years. I do not at all think it is a coincidence that the USL is announcing this now when last week the NASL lost their antitrust lawsuit against MLS and US Soccer. Um, did their case have merit? A jury said no, not at all. They lost on every single count of their complaint. They didn't win a single one. There's a lot of soccer people, myself included, who are not don't have the emotional bandwidth or capital or time or wherewithal to keep track of all the soccer wars BS, which is a lot of what the old NASL. I say the old NASL. The old NASL was in the 70s. The newer old NASL from 2016, 17, whenever that lawsuit got filed. There's a lot of soccer people that couldn't quite wrap their brains around what was going on there. So explaining it to a jury of people who have nothing to do with soccer, I think was probably going to be a Herculean task. I also do wonder, Rocco Camaso got on the stand and under oath had to testify as to what an absolute piece of shit he is. Like that, I don't know if you're familiar with some of the stuff that he testified that he was doing. Absolutely bonkers, bananas, wild stuff. Like the least insane of which was the fact that he had created a number of burner accounts to yell at MLS execs and U.S. Soccer execs, and I believe that one of the tirades that one of his burners accounts went on is that Don Garber was, quote, raping the American soccer landscape. Truly insane, unhinged, bananas behavior. Like you have gone off the deep end. I cannot imagine that played too terribly well with a jury of people who don't know a lot about, who may not know about soccer, but they know about internet behavior. And once you get caught running burner accounts, especially when your burner accounts are doing insane stuff like that, you're gonna lose. I work for an attorney. I work in the legal field as my regular job. Never had a jury trial before, but I cannot imagine if somebody in whatever it is that we had going on was up on the stand under oath admitting to some of the things that Rocco Camaso was admitting to. I can't imagine it going well there either. So, but again, I don't think it's a coincidence that right after that case gets decided, a week later, the USL comes out and says, "Hey, we're doing this." I think it's dumb. I think it's completely unnecessary. Whether it has real legs or not, I don't know. This could be another thing. Like we've mentioned, the USL has talked about a lot of things in the past, and most of them have not come to pass. I think they were the ones that floated the idea of trialing the concussion substitute, right? We're going to bring you on, and if you get concussed, like if somebody gets concussed, we can bring you on until somebody else comes on, or you get checked out, or that sort of thing. And I think that's made its way down to the youth level, but I don't know that that's been put into place anywhere at the professional level. Of course, like I said, they've talked about doing promotion and relegation for as long as I've been covering the USL in this country. So since 2019. So I don't think this is a good idea. In fact, I think it's an incredibly dumb idea. And for a number of reasons, be it competition from MLS, concerns about where are you going to put these teams, meaning what cities, what stadiums in those cities, what are you going to do with the teams that you already have, uh, things of that nature. And what is U.S. Soccer going to do? I don't know. Uh, I I've spent a lot of time and energy and emotional capital hating U.S. Soccer over the last 8 to 10 years. Um, but I like a lot of what they've been saying and a lot of what they've been doing for about the last, basically, I would say since July. They hired Emma Hayes to coach the women's team. They finally fired Greg Berhalter. Praise Jesus. Um, then they made it a smash home run hire with Mauricio Pochettino to coach the men's team. Some of the interviews that JT Batson has been doing. He did one recently at one of the winter soccer conventions. I don't remember which one it was, where he said, "We want to make every U.S. men's national team home game a big event." And that's something that I've been yelling and screaming about for 6 years. So I like a lot of what they're saying and what they're doing. It is my opinion and my belief that they should not grant Division One sanctioning to whatever this new USL league is. Um, I think it would cause more problems than it would solve, and I think it would be an embarrassment. And I don't think you have to look any further than the USL Super League. Like the NWSL has been around since 2013, so I think they've finished 11 seasons now. And then all of a sudden, we now have a second Division One women's league in this country, and they're having to learn on the fly. They didn't have very much runway. That's another thing. You're talking could start play as soon as 2027. You don't have a single team in your league yet, and you're telling me in less than 2 years you're gonna get all these teams to meet all these requirements and launch. I think that would be foolhardy. Now, if somehow, some way, one of those potential teams was to be in Memphis, I might throw all of my weight behind it because I would like to have professional soccer back in Memphis. And if you'll recall the episode of the 901 Soccer podcast when we said, what would it take to get professional soccer back in Memphis? I said, I don't want a team back right away because I want time to grieve the loss of Memphis 901 FC. But if 2027, 2028, somewhere around there, might be an appropriate enough window of time to mourn. Um, so that is the let me say this, that is the only way I would want Division One league to come into existence, is that if it included a team here in Memphis. And I don't think it would, because like I said, you have to check all these boxes, and Memphis does not check those boxes right now. If they did, they would still have Memphis 901 FC, which brings us back to what is the need for this new Division One league? There isn't one. The USL Championship has stabilized, but it is not stable enough that you can just throw a bunch more teams up here and expect everything down here to be fine. I think that would be foolhardy. I think it would be much better served improving and bettering what they have. And how you go about doing that, I'm not sure. This is something that I've been kind of pontificating and thinking out loud about on several podcast episodes. It comes down to, how do you capitalize on hosting a World Cup if you're not in one of the cities that has World Cup games? And there's a lot of USL Championship teams in cities that are not hosting World Cup games. And I think a lot of it does come down to the individual teams, but I'm sure there are things that the league can do to help facilitate that growth. One of those, I do not believe that adding a new first division team is one of those things. So that's my take on that. I think it would be a disaster, and I would prefer it not to happen, and I would prefer that they just better what they already have and focus. And if you're going to add teams, just add them to the championship or League One. I have no problem with you taking your league to to more people that are unserved or underserved in the American soccer community. If there's a city out there that loves soccer and wants a team, that's fine. I don't think it needs to be a first division team. There's nothing wrong with expanding the USL Championship. USL Championship it's a fun league. I enjoyed my time covering a team in USL Championship. So I think that's probably going to do it. That's just a little 30 minutes of me rambling. Do want to say one more thing. You can check out over on the Bluff City Media website. I put up an article today. The University of Memphis women's and men's teams announced their spring schedule for 2025. Spring college soccer is there's not a lot on the line. There's not a lot to play for. There's no NCAA tournament berth, no conference championship. It's without sounding disrespectful. It's a way to make sure that the off season doesn't last for 10 months, right? I like the idea of it. I don't like that there's really not a lot to play for. That being said, my schedule permitting, I will do my darndest to be out at the Billy Murphy Track and Soccer Stadium at South Campus at the University of Memphis to cover the women's and men's teams, because those are programs that are worthy of your support. They both won the AAC regular season title last year. They've both been to the NCAA tournament a number of times immediately prior to that. So I think it is, if you are a former Memphis 901SC fan and you no longer have a professional team in Memphis to support, you should go support the Tigers. I would prefer that the bulk of that support be there during the fall when the games count for something. Excuse me. When the games count for something. But if you were to go out there and support them and spend money on concessions, remember, you don't have to buy tickets. You don't have to pay for parking. The games are free. You literally just show up. That is all you have to do. You just show up out there and support the Tigers and buy a Gatorade and a Coke and a hot dog. Let me actually pull that schedule up. I should have had that done already, but failing to prepare is preparing to fail is failing to prepare. Reverse that. So, some of the more eye-catching things about this, the women's schedule, they have 3 home games and 3 on the road. They are at Ole Miss on March the 2nd, at Mississippi State on March the 30th, and at UT Martin on April the 17th. At home on March the 17th against Toronto Blizzard, at home on March the 20th against Arkansas State, and at home on April 12th against Ole Miss. So you get a home game against an SEC opponent. And regardless of how good or bad they might be, that's one I would like to see, and I'm sure the U of M would like to see, a full house. Because that's the thing. If you're a Memphis fan and you don't know anything about soccer, but you see Memphis is playing Ole Miss in something, that's going to move the needle for you. The men's team does not have any games against power conference opponents, but they do have 8 games at home. Some of them are doubleheaders. March the 1st against Southwest Christian, March the 22nd against Cumberland. Then the next day on the 23rd, they have their alumni game. I'm not sure what that is, but you should still go. The March 29th home game against CBU is one that I think most people are going to probably want to get out to. And then they have 2 doubleheaders. April the 5th against Ouachita, 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 and then Montevallo. And then on April the 12th, they have a doubleheader against Union and Jones. I guess that's Jones College and Union University. Also worth noting that April 12th is the same day as that home game against Ole Miss, so for the women. So, technically, April the 12th, it's a Saturday, is a triple header. So that could be a fun day. So I highly recommend that if you have the time to go out to South Campus and support the women's and men's programs at the University of Memphis. I think that is going to do it for me here tonight. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I'm your host, Lawrence Dockery. You can find me on Twitter at LDoc93. You can find the 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod. You can find Bluff City Media on Twitter at BluffCity_media. Find us on Facebook. Just search 901 Soccer and just search Bluff City Media. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe to the Bluff City Media channel. Please like the video. Please comment on the video. It helps the channel grow. Thanks, and we will talk to you next time.